And it could be at least another day to determine exactly how Hurricane Dorian will impact us. But we want you to know we're tracking the storm 24/7. We're live streaming updates and up-to-the-minute path changes on all of our streaming apps. And there's still a lot of uncertainty with this.
Especially for the East Coast. I mean, I think most people realize that in our area, if there's an East Coast hurricane, the impacts on the West Coast aren't nearly as much,
right.
And vice versa. So I think unless there's some drastic changes, we're talking about tropical storm force winds, which can easily cause power outages. It very often happens. But I seriously doubt we're looking at hurricane force based on the current track, except for possibly maybe Highlands or Polk. And I do think the track is going to continue to change. And there's so many things going on, and I know it's so frustrating at home because you're trying to make plans for your family. You're deciding whether you're going to drive over to the east side of the state and pick up your friends or your family or your parents or whatever the case. I do think by later tomorrow we're going to have a good bit of time, maybe 2 or 3 days before landfall, because it is slowing down. That's good news, bad news, and we'll talk about that coming up in just a couple of minutes. Still some storms down in western Sarasota County, pretty much right on top of Sarasota right now. There they are. Quite a bit of lightning with it as well as they move offshore. Otherwise, it's all about the heat today. Middle 90s, record-breaking highs across the area. 92 right now in Lutz, 93 in Tampa, 93 in Longboat Key, low 90s even along the coastal areas. There was some rain in Bartow, 81. We hit 96 today in Tampa, record-breaking across part of the area, 96 in Sarasota, 94 in Brooksville, Clearwater 90. So a lot of heat and some scattered storms out there. I think more of the same tomorrow. Lower 90s right now, north winds, north-northeast in direction, and that typically brings us some drier air and some hotter air this time of the year. You look at the satellite, how many folks about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, if you lived along the coast, heard the thunder, saw the lightning, and had the heavy rain? It was coming down for a couple of hours. So these storms, even this time of the year, the air is just saturated, and there's so much warmth out there and instability that there can always be some scattered showers and storms at almost any time. But overnight tonight, I think we stay dry. And tomorrow morning will be dry. And that is your forecast through Sunday. This is not going to be a bad Labor Day weekend. In fact, I'm not telling people to go to Orlando because there'll probably be people leaving in some areas. But I actually think the parks will be just fine on Saturday, maybe even Sunday. And then Monday is when things are really going to start to go downhill. But you see the storms in the afternoon. I mean, there's nothing unusual about this. This is late day storm coverage. They'll be out there as they usually are this time of the year. But obviously the mornings will be dry, the afternoons will be stormy, and then starting late Sunday, and really for our area, maybe as late as early Tuesday before we really start to see the impacts. Again, based on how we believe Dorian is going to start to slow down. There it is, winds of 85 miles an hour. Now, I didn't say weaken, I said slow down. In other words, it's forward speed, because its strength looks to be getting stronger and stronger over the next several days. This is the updated track from the Hurricane Center. Now, it's south of where it was at 11, and it's slower than its last 11 o'clock advisory. So the reason you're seeing a subtle change, even though there's been some models going more down to the south, is because the Hurricane Center, and with good reason, they don't like to do a lot of flip-flopping or waffling or quick moving, because they realize so many people depend on this forecast to make plans for emergency preparations, to decide to evacuate, whatnot. So they're only going to move a little bit at a time. So as we continue to see the models trend a little more south, that track will likely continue to move a little bit south as well. Now, how will that impact our area? It all depends on where that turn occurs. If it occurs here, we would see less. If it occurs here, we'd see more. But remember, once this goes over land, it's a small system in terms of size. It will weaken pretty quickly, 24 hours, maybe from even a 4 down to a 1. Now, that's still hurricane force. And that would be primarily maybe Polk County or Highlands. But again, because it's such a small storm, hurricane winds extend 10, 15 miles out from the center. That's it. May go a little bigger eventually, but we're talking a very small area overall that are going to see the worst of this system. This is not a large storm. This is not an Irma, nowhere close to it in terms of size. So there are your spaghetti models. You notice there's a lot of consistency here, and that's the general track from the Hurricane Center. But of late, some have been going down to the south. It's a term we've heard a lot of. I was just talking with Isabel about it. Windshield wiper effect. Models have a tendency to go one run here, another run there, back and forth like windshields. And eventually they kind of settle in the middle. Right now, the middle is right there. We're leaning toward thinking it might be a little more south and east down the road, but we're still a day or two out from really knowing that for sure. Now, this is the Euro, and I'm showing you this is because this is such a huge change from yesterday, bringing it up the east side of the state with winds of around 100 miles an hour. If this were to verify, it's strong enough to see these winds. The question is, will they be on the coast? Will they be a little bit more to the south? Or will they be offshore? All of those at this point are still on the table, depending on how this plays out. Florida's most accurate 7-day forecast. Rain chances, typical summer weather right through Sunday. And then by Monday, we start to see the winds pick up a little bit. Tuesday and Wednesday, rains arrive, and they will be heavy at times because Dorian will slow down at that point, and that leads to the possibility of some flooding for the northern half of the state. That's something else we're going to have to keep our eyes on.